Kate Falcha, welcome to Irish Granny Helen. I better warn you right away, I've been fighting off hiccups all morning, so let's see how far we get here. Don't know, I'm kind of prone to hiccups, it's weird. Okay, happy Black History Month. This is the second week. Last week I looked at the issue of maternal and infant mortality and morbidity in the African American community around childbirth. And I covered the life of Margaret Smith, a revered, long-term midwife. And this week I'm looking at, it's another woman, I can't help it. I'm looking at a woman who made huge contributions in the world of economics and civil rights. This is Sadie Tanner Mossell Alexander. Let me put my glasses on here. She was born January 2nd, 1898 in Philadelphia. She went to high school in Washington, D.C. She went to live in D.C. to go to this particular high school. She lived with her uncle and her aunt. Her uncle was a professor at Howard. They lived on the campus in housing for professors. She graduated in 1918 from the University of Pennsylvania School of Education. She faced issues which we'll talk about, not the least of which was her gender. They made false accusations of plagiarism. She got very poor advising from the university. Her work was stolen by other students, like her intellectual property. She had to eat in the lobby of lunch by herself every day because only whites were allowed to use the dining room at the university. She went to graduate school at the University of Pennsylvania in economics, and in 1919 she got her master's. She won the Francis Sergeant Pepper Fellowship. Sergeant Pepper, I just realized that. I wrote it down and it didn't even dawn on me. In 1921, she was one of 3 total African-American women to get a PhD from any American university. They all did it within days of each other. Georgia Simpson and Eva Dykes were the other 2. She could not get a professorship because she was a Black woman. Racism, misogyny. She took an actuarial job with a Black insurance company for 2 years in North Carolina. And in 1919, she became the first national president of the Delta Sigma Theta sorority. And she was their legal advisor later for 35 years. Under her leadership, she helped to coalesce, I think there were 4 chapters total, and she helped to make them part of a larger national organization. In 1923, she married a guy called Raymond Price Alexander. He had just graduated from law school. She moved with him to Philadelphia. She got jobs. She got jobs offered to her outside of Philadelphia, but her first priority was, stay with your new husband. So she wanted to remain in Philadelphia. So rather than take those jobs, she volunteered and went to law school. So in the margin, I wrote overachiever. And if you think she's an overachiever, wait to hear about her family. It's unbelievable. Anyway, she was the first African-American woman in the University of Pennsylvania Law School. The dean tried to keep her off of the law review, but others advocated for her, including the editor, who said that she's earned this. In 1927, she was the first African-American woman to graduate from Penn Law, and she was the first African-American woman to pass the Pennsylvania bar. Between 1927 and 1982, she practiced law. In 1927, she started by joining her husband's firm and specializing in estate and family law. Both of them were very active in civil rights In 1928, she was the first African American woman who became an assistant city solicitor for Philadelphia, the city of Philadelphia. And in 1943, she was the first woman to become the secretary of the National Bar. In 1959, she opened her own law office. Her husband got an appointment to the Court of Common Pleas, and he stopped his law office, so she just opened her own. He died in 1974, and in 1976, she became general counsel for a big law firm called Atkinson's, Myers, and Archer. She died November 1st, 1989, of Alzheimer's and pneumonia because of Alzheimer's, which I find particularly sad because she was so brilliant. She came from an illustrious family, and I'm not kidding you. You're not going to believe this. It's how I found out about her, was reading about her brother. Her maternal grandfather was a bishop of some Baptist church. He and also an editor. His name was Benjamin Tanner. He and a woman, Sarah Elizabeth Tanner, excuse me, they had 7 children, including Henry Ossawa Tanner, who was a renowned painter, Hallie Tanner Johnson, who was the first female doctor in Alabama, and I read about her somewhere else. I finally made the connection. They tried to talk her into going to law school, and she was like, no, I want to be a doctor. She started, after she got her medical license, she started a nursing school at Tuskegee Institute. Her father, this is get her name right, good Lord, Sadie, her mother was Sarah. Her father was Aaron Mossell II, who was the first African-American graduate of University of Pennsylvania Law. In 1899, when she was a year old, he abandoned the family and moved to Wales, which just seems odd. Her uncle was Nathan Mossell. He was the first African-American graduate of the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine. Her siblings, Aaron Mossell III was a pharmacist. Elizabeth Mossell was the dean of women at Virginia State College. Her uncle, Lewis Moore, with whom she lived while she was in high school, was the dean of Howard. Her husband, Raymond, had been the son of enslaved people. He went to Wharton. He went to Harvard Law. They had 4 children. This is so sad. They had 4 premature babies. 2 did not survive. One, Mary Elizabeth, was born in 1934, and I have no other information about her. Her other daughter, Ray Pace, got a PhD and married Archie Epps III, the dean of students at Howard. Her life was dedicated to economic justice for the working class. So really, she went to law school and she used that to her advantage, but she advocated with her extreme knowledge of economics. She advocated for justice for the working class. She pushed multiracial labor organizations. She believed that Blacks needed economic power before civil rights would ever happen. Money talks, I guess, is what she was saying. She was outspoken and not afraid, and outspoken against white dominance. In 1921, her doctoral dissertation was, quote, "The standard of living among 100 Negro migrant families in Philadelphia." What she did, she was one of the very first people to study and provide insight into the economic conditions of African-American families who had moved up from the South in the Great Migration. And they were more predisposed to talk with her. She pointed to the fact that they had no opportunity to rise in economic condition or class. They were in a place of stasis because of low wages, high rents, and discrimination, causing lower wages and higher rents. She challenged the racist narrative that Black poverty was about personal failing. She showed that that wasn't true. She was a Republican, and that was because she didn't trust the Southern Democrats. I mean, there was a switch there in parties' point of view. And we're talking, right at the beginning of the 20th century. She was a big critic of the New Deal. She did not like FDR. She thought he was a racist because a lot of his policies were inequitous when it came to race. And she advocated for fair federal aid and protection from job discrimination. She really made a big difference. She was a critic of the ideal lifestyle of womanhood that was sold to women at the time. She said that's reserved for white women. The rest of us live in the real world. While Black women did low wage and domestic labor, the white women were sitting at home filing their nails. And that was the image that was put forward. She equated racial violence to the treatment of the Jews in Germany before the war. She advocated, and we don't fully know the extent to which that violence went. And I'm saying that based on the book that I'm doing now the next few weekends. If you want to know what I'm talking about, listen to the book because it's truly unbelievable for those of us who were never taught. She advocated for labor equity with unions. She advocated for for economic justice. She was put on Truman's Presidential Committee on Human Rights. She had an outsized influence on Truman and the evolution of civil rights, the movement away, the recovery from Jim Crow laws. She really did have a huge influence on that. Her work presaged by a decade and more the activism of the civil rights movement. She helped form the Citizens Council on Democratic Rights, which eventually became the Philadelphia branch of the ACLU. She advocated in 1980 for reproductive rights. She advocated for benefits for nurses. Remember her sister was a doctor, but formed a nursing school at Tuskegee. She was instrumental in pushing Truman, with the help of Thurgood Marshall, to pursue civil rights and equity for Black people in response to the terrible violence after World War II. There was incredible violence, and Truman didn't know about it. A lot of white people didn't know, and she had firsthand knowledge and told him what it was like, and he was absolutely horrified. A professorship at University of Pennsylvania was named for her and her husband eventually. So that's her life, and she had an outsized influence on civil rights, and she doesn't get the attention or the praise or the gratitude that she deserves, I don't think. I mean, I had never heard of her. Maybe that's just me, but the men involved get a lot of praise, and the women often don't. So I was happy to cover her life. But then I wanted to know, just as we looked at maternal and infant morbidity and mortality today in relationship to midwifery in Alabama in the past, I want to look a little bit at economic situations now for African Americans compared to the work that she did in the beginning half of the 20th century, well, and beyond. So I looked at, let me see, where did I write down? The Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies. And there was another place. No, I don't think I wrote it down. Well, trust me. So in 2026, there are still significant disparities between white Americans and Black Americans when it comes to economic status, despite some improvement. There have been some improvements, but not enough to keep up, not enough to catch up and keep up. There's a substantial wealth gap. The median household income for African Americans is $30,000 lower than for white people. The median Black wealth is far below levels needed for financial security. And keep in mind that this is a generational problem, because white people, now we're talking about in the good old days, like, 20 years ago, white people could expect to maybe inherit a house or get a loan from their parents, a leg up getting started as young people, or help to pay for college or whatever. Most Black people did not have access to that coming into the second half of the 20th century. 24% of Black households have zero or negative net worth. That's related to that lack of generational wealth. Unemployment is down in African American circles, 5.5%, which is better than it was before, but it's still behind the national average. Racial economic divides persist. And they did a little math here, and this puts it in perspective. It would take 500 years to bridge the present income gap the way things are going right now, and it would take 800 years to bridge the wealth gap at the current rates. In 2024, only 41% of Black adults had savings enough for 3 months. They had one of the lowest shares of business ownership. They are continuing to grow in access to education, but the best Black economy in generations existing now is not nearly enough. That just shows you how bad it was. There's record lower poverty and lower unemployment and higher income and higher wealth, but 500 years, 800 years to catch up. It's mired in economic insecurity because Black people, and we're talking about averages here, we're not talking all, have what's called asset poverty. Their families don't own a home or a business or whatever. Because there's economic inequality. Economic issues are at the core of almost all other concerns in the African American community. And it's believed, according to this Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, that they need a targeted approach with, especially with the recent backlash against DEI. DEI was making some headway into making things more equitable. Black people will continue to be economically second-class citizens unless we address this. So she did a lot of good and, civil rights, but we have a long way to go. So we just need to be aware we have a long way to go. And when people get huffy about DEI, they need to realize how huge that gap is. It's real. It's statistically provable. So that's all. Happy Black History Month. I hope everybody pauses and thinks about our African American brothers and sisters who have to work harder to get where they want to go. Thank you for watching. Slán go fóill. Slán.